Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. Now, in a month that is usually all about player incomings, Manchester United are closing in on appointing a new interim head coach. Real Madrid are looking for a new full-time one after Xabi Alonso left. Well, Kaveh Solokol and Mark McAdam are here to cast an expert eye. There's a major update on Mark Guehi's future. We'll take an in-depth look at his January and summer suitors. Lucas Paqueta tells West Ham he wants to return to Brazil, but can the relegation-threatened club afford to let him go? And there's plenty of movement at Villa Park, with Donyell Marlin possibly on his way out and two former Chelsea players on their radar. Absolutely loads to get into, so let's get right into it. Mark, let's start with Manchester United. The interim managerial latest, what is it?
Yeah, significant 24 hours for Manchester United as they close in on that man you can see behind us now, Michael Carrick. He looks like he's going to become the new Manchester United interim head boss. It's off the back of what has been a number of days where Jason Wilcox has been leading the chase to try and find the man they believe that can replace, on an interim basis, Ruben Amorim. Discussions have been happening with Carrick and his representatives over the final details about what the contract and what the situation will look like. There's a thought process as well that Darren Fletcher will stay on and will become a part of Michael Carrick's backroom team. One of the clues, I guess, really was Adam Lawrence, who was at Newcastle United managing their under-21s. He handed his notice in. He's going to be leaving Newcastle. You don't very often hand your notice in unless you've got another job lined up. He was also a part of Michael Carrick's backroom team at Middlesbrough as well. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, another man that's been in the frame for Manchester United, there was discussions over the course of the weekend, but there was no second round of discussions, whereas Manchester United have held further talks with Michael Carrick today. Clearly they've seen something they liked his ideas, they liked his philosophy, they liked what he thought Manchester United should be, hence why they decided to go back in and discuss in more detail and at length exactly what they see the project looking like between now and the end of the season. He was actually a really successful manager at Middlesbrough, did everything but get them promoted. When he went in, they were in the bottom half of the Championship, really struggling for form, and he turned them into a side that got to the playoff semi-final in the Championship, beaten by Coventry. In the second season, he took them to the League Cup semi-final, played some attractive football, developed young players like Morgan Rogers, who's probably the best player in the Premier League right now. So he's got a good track record. Ultimately, he got sacked in the summer because Middlesbrough and their hierarchy didn't feel he got them to where they wanted, which is, of course, a Premier League return. But clearly that someone had all the things, that were just going right for him. He was ticking the right boxes. Things were in the right direction, developing players, playing attractive football and trying to get them into the Premier League. He just couldn't get them over that final hurdle. So, yeah, just a matter of time now before we get what we believe to be confirmation from Manchester United that Michael Carrick will be the interim head coach.
Right, Mark, I've got a development. Wayne Rooney has just come out and said he was asked if he joined Carrick on his coaching staff. He said, "Of course I would. It's a no-brainer if that's the situation, but I think that the club needs people around the place. So whether it's Michael goes in, for instance, Fletch or John O'Shea or myself or whoever, it needs people around the club who know football, and Roy Keane, I think." Would Wayne Rooney, given his managerial track record, be a good addition?
Wayne Rooney, I think, picked up 19 points at Plymouth Argyle. I watched 15 of those points. Whatever it was, when I turned up to watch Wayne Rooney at Home Park, the team were brilliant. Played some really attractive football. They had good young players, and there was a clear identity at times. They just clearly, over a longer period of time, lacked what they needed. I think Wayne Rooney, with his experiences at Derby, at Plymouth, at Birmingham, and now having had some time out of the game, will be a far better coach than he was 6 months or 12 months or 24 months ago. The fact that he understands what Manchester United's about, the fact that he is their greatest ever goal scorer, I don't think that will do them any harm by having his input, his voice around that dressing room, particularly when you've got a young striker like Benjamin Sesko, who there is a lot of expectation on. If he's got Wayne Rooney in his ear, just talking him through it, teaching him things on the training pitch, I think that could be brilliant.
So Sorry to interrupt. So 15 of those 19 points, you were there.
Yeah.
Moral of the tale, should have signed you up. But I want to stop you because Carve, could all of this be derailed because we found out in the last hour Xabi Alonso is available? Would it not be negligent of Man United to go, hang on, that's a class act, let's try and get him in?
But you're talking about Xabi Alonso, who used to play for Liverpool.
Doesn't matter. If he's a top manager, does it matter?
I would find it difficult to imagine him becoming the manager of Manchester United. But having said that, lots of things that have happened at Manchester United are difficult to have predicted. Now, Michael Carrick becoming the interim manager or interim head coach was definitely not in the script. When Ineos bought 30% of Manchester United and took over the running of the club, they came out and said they were going to make Manchester United great again. They were going to bring the glory days back to United. Nowhere did they say that we are going to have somebody like Michael Carrick as our manager until the end of the season. Now, take nothing away from Michael Carrick. Fantastic player. But let's be honest, if Manchester United were looking for a full-time manager during the summer, Michael Carrick would not get the job. Now, I wish him the best. I wish him well. This is a fantastic opportunity for him, because if he does well, and by doing well, all I'm saying is finishing in the top 5, getting in the Champions League, then he has a good chance of getting the job on a full-time basis. But my fear is that the problems at Manchester United cannot be solved by a manager. And I've been saying the same thing for 20 years, and I've stopped saying it because I'm bored of saying it. But the problems at Manchester United are to do with the ownership structure. And until that changes, I don't think anything really is going to change at Manchester United.
Mark, I want to go back to Xabi Alonso. Now, over the last, Liverpool are unbeaten in 9, I think, 9 or 10. So Arne Slot has managed to quieten the noise around him. Given Xabi Alonso's available, and given, as Carve says, he used to play for Liverpool, should Arne Slot be worried? Is there a chance that Liverpool might go, there's only a short window that this bloke's going to be available, we need to get him now?
Well, he was linked with Liverpool before he joined Real Madrid. I think the Liverpool hierarchy would avoid at all costs making any type of managerial change during the course of a season. There is still a Champions League to play for. They still could get into Europe and, of course, the FA Cup as well. So there are still things that Arne Slot could achieve this season. What happens if he goes and wins the Champions League and the FA Cup and does the double? People won't be talking about him departing Liverpool. They'll be talking about continuing to back him and build on what he's already done in the short space of time that he's been there. But I think what this does with Xabi Alonso is it will put a number of clubs on red alert, because he is the type of manager that potentially could be top 6 material. You know, there's a lot of talk about Pep Guardiola. What happens if Mikel Arteta doesn't deliver a trophy at Arsenal this season? Do they decide to stick with him again?
But don't you go now if you're a club, because he will go?
Potentially, yes. He could potentially go and you could miss that opportunity. I think with the situation, 8 months at Real Madrid, you know, and they're 4 points behind Barcelona, a financially unstable Barcelona. They lost in the Spanish Super Cup last night against Barcelona, which is not acceptable. You know, second place is the first loser as far as Real Madrid fans are concerned. You know, you cannot be behind Barcelona at any point. I also think, you know, the success he had at Bayer Leverkusen, but he's still very green. You know, despite the 14 major trophies, despite the World Cup, despite 2 Euros, despite all the things he's achieved, he's still very new as a coach. And clearly, the philosophy he has when it comes to playing the game, it didn't work for Real Madrid. So why would it work for Liverpool? Why would it work for Manchester United?
We will revisit Xabi Alonso real quick.
I think Real Madrid is a special case, though. I think what happened with Alonso is he went in there, he tried to take on some big egos in the dressing room. He tried to change the way they played, made it a little bit more like Mourinho football, more defensive, more counter-attacking, and the players weren't really having it by and large. I think his methods would work at a lot of clubs, but I'm not sure they were ever going to work at Real Madrid.
If we have time at the end of the show, I'd like to come back to Xabi Alonso, if you wouldn't mind. But I now want to talk Lucas Paqueta at West Ham. He wants to get out. He wants to go back to Brazil. How difficult is that for West Ham to navigate this situation, Carve?
Very, very difficult. I think the reason he wants to go back to Brazil is purely for personal reasons.
Yeah.
For his own happiness and the happiness of his family, he just wants to go home. Of course, everybody knows that he's been deeply affected by this FA betting case, which threatened to end his career. Back in July, he was cleared of spot fixing charges after a 2-year investigation. So for 2 years, he had this hanging over him. And now he just feels, you know what? I want a change of scene. I want to go home. I want to go to Flamengo. Now, the only issue is that West Ham are deep in relegation trouble. They're 7 points away from safety. Can they really afford to sell their best player? How would it look if the board sanctioned his sale?
But how do you keep an unhappy player who wants out? What do you do?
Well, do you sit down with him and say, please, Lucas, look at the situation we're in. Just hold on until the summer. We'll see what we can do in the summer. We know you want to go to Flamengo. We know they're one of the biggest clubs in South America. They're the champions of South America, champions of Brazil as well. We know the Brazilian transfer window is open until March. But please just bear with us. Give us another 5 months. Try and keep us in the Premier League. Then we will revisit this. I think the other issue is the money Flamengo are putting on the table is not going to be enough to tempt West Ham at the moment. I think at the moment they're offering around 30 million euros, which is 26 million pounds. That is not enough for West Ham.
But Mark, we saw Lucas Paqueta get that red card. He's clearly very emotional. The whole situation has been difficult for him. If he says to West Ham, I want out, surely they've got to let him go, whether there's enough money on the table or not.
Absolutely, and that's the problem. Do you have an unhappy player who can't contribute to the team, or do you just have to accept, actually? I did an interview with David Sullivan, who had a very similar situation with Dimitri Payet, who was desperate to leave, absolutely desperate to leave, said he's never going to play for the football club ever again. Let me go. If you don't let me go, I won't go. And in the end, they sold him for what they believed less than market value. But David Sullivan's mantra was, I cannot keep an unhappy player at the football club, despite what I believe are the best interests in the football club. I have to do what's right for the player as much as myself and the team. Carver made a really interesting point there. The Brazilian transfer window is open until March. Maybe, possibly, could there be some sort of agreement? They say, look, Lucas, give us everything you can for the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Let's get us away from the bottom three. And if we're in a healthy, safe position before the Brazilian window shuts, then we will talk about potentially letting you go. But we need everything for the next 6 or 7 weeks.
But the problem then would be, if they were to sell him in March, they wouldn't be able to sign a replacement.
But if they sign a replacement now, then they've got one through the door.
If they sell him, they're going to have to sell him now. I would make the point as well that West Ham don't want to sell him. West Ham have not received any formal offers for him. Another point I would make is that it's got nothing to do with money. If he was to return to Flamengo, he would be taking a pay cut. This is just for personal reasons only. That's what it's about.
Just one point you made there about the red card. He is the type of player you might need in a relegation scrap because he's got that emotional presence. He's got that physicality.
He's a really good player.
He's a top player. Linked with Manchester City at one stage.
85 million.
He brings so much. And actually, right now, that's probably what you need in this environment. You need character, you need personality, you need players that wear their heart on their sleeve and they're prepared to give everything for the team. And again, that's another reason why West Ham would say, at the minute, we can't let you go. No win in their last 10 Premier League matches. They're under serious pressure. 7 points the gap with a weaker goal difference. And losing the star man alongside Jarrod Bowen could be disastrous.
Yeah, indeed. All right, listen, we've got some breaking news. I'm going to break away. And it is transfer news of a sort. It is golf news. Brooks Koepka will make a sensational return to the PGA Tour before the end of this month under the new returning member programme following his departure from Live Golf. Now, he has been ineligible to play on the PGA Tour since he joined Live Golf back in 2022, but he's confirmed that he is parting ways with the Saudi-backed circuit despite reportedly having 1 year left on his contract. We'll have much, much more on this in the Sports Centre next. But the breaking news is that Brooks Koepka is coming back to the PGA Tour from Live Golf. Right, we've got some more breaking news for you as well. Apparently, Michael Carrick is very keen for his former assistant at Middlesbrough, Jonathan Woodgate, to join him on the coaching staff at Manchester United. Not clear yet whether United are prepared to agree to Carrick's wishes, but the former Leeds defender could well be joining Carrick, which looks like he's going to get the job, doesn't he, at Manchester United. Quick word on that. Good appointment, Jonathan Woodgate?
Absolutely. I watched him at close quarters down at Bournemouth. He took Bournemouth into the playoffs. Unfortunately, they got beaten by Brentford that year that Thomas Frank took Brentford into the Premier League. But worked with players like Danjuma, who went on to be a success in the Champions League, in La Liga. Played a good, attractive brand of football. He came to Bournemouth, actually, as someone to work as a coach under Jason Tindall. 2 weeks later, found himself as the head coach. So before he'd even got his feet under the table, he was the main man making decisions. Did really well, didn't get the job on a full-time basis, but had success in the time that he was there. Obviously, we know about his playing career. Leeds, Real Madrid, been around a long time. He's coached a long time, worked with good people, good guy. And again, I could understand why Michael Carrick would want him at Manchester United because of the experiences he has in the game. And you just get a feeling, you know, Wayne Rooney as a striker coach, Jonathan Woodgate there with experience, Darren Fletcher there. It feels like a bit of an old boys club. But what you've got is a lot of people that have had huge success in the game as players that are all on the same page, all understand each other and all understand what it takes to be operating at the highest level.
Didn't someone once say, never go back? Right, we're going to take a break. And there's breaking news as we go into the break. Atletico Madrid's Conor Gallagher is very close to a move to Tottenham. We'll discuss that and what it means for other Premier League clubs who want to sign him. That and more to come on The Transfer Show next. Hello again. Looks like we have a gazumping on The Transfer Show. Conor Gallagher, we thought, was going to Villa. Now looks like he's going to Spurs. Carve.
Yeah, just an update from our Tottenham reporter, Michael Bridge. He is saying that Tottenham are close to agreeing a deal with Atletico Madrid to sign Conor Gallagher. Discussions between the clubs are for a permanent transfer. We understand Atletico want around £26 million for the former Chelsea midfielder. He signed for the Spanish club in the summer of 2024 for around £38 million, and he's still got a contract at Atletico until the summer of 2029. I think what's happening here is that this season he's not been playing regularly, especially in La Liga. I think he's only started about 4 games. And of course, the World Cup is coming up. He wants regular football. We know Spurs have got injury problems. So I think on paper, this makes a lot of sense.
Does it, though? Because very good player, though, Conor Gallagher is, Mark. He's not a creative midfielder. Isn't that what Tottenham need?
I think Tottenham need a lot. I think Tottenham need various types of midfielders. But what I think they'll get in Conor Gallagher is a player that will be box-to-box and bring energy and a lot of experience as well. He's only 25 years old, but he's played for England. He's played in the Premier League. How many times have we seen those players that have come over from Europe over the course of the summer in the £3.4 billion that was spent? How many of them have actually had the impact that's needed in their early Premier League career? Whereas the risk of bringing someone over who's already played in the Premier League, speaks the language, is not going to have a problem settling in the country and understand the rigours of top-flight football in this country, it lessens the risk that you take as a football club. And this is quite fascinating. We used to say like a hijack was almost a phrase that a transfer reporter would use when they'd got some information wrong. You know, they'd be saying, a player's going here, this is what I'm being told, this is where he's going, this is all done and dusted, and then he'd go somewhere else. So instead of turning around and saying, actually, we got it wrong, they'd say, hijack. He's been hijacked. But this feels like 2 Premier League sides that have gone toe-to-toe for the same player. We were going to talk about Aston Villa and their interest with regards to Conor Gallagher. They were interested in taking him on loan initially and then potentially with an obligation to make that permanent in the summer, whereas Tottenham have not mucked around They've gone straight to the table and says, we don't want him on loan, we want him now, this is what we'll pay. And because he's been lacking in game time for Atletico Madrid, and like Carve said, he's actually played 27 times for Madrid this season. But a lot of them have been in European competition or cup competition. He's not started many La Liga games, which I guess is where the problem lies.
So is the most significant part of all of this that the club are backing the manager, Thomas Frank?
That's a very good point. I think the owners have let it be known that after the Daniel Levy era, they were going to focus on bringing trophies and on-field success to Tottenham. And a lot of the supporters feel like those promises haven't been kept. The Spurs fans are very unhappy at the moment, and they wanted to see something from the club during this window. And I think the injury problems are so bad, and the situation off the pitch is pretty serious as well, that the board felt like they needed to do something. And I think on paper, this is a very, very good move because, as Mark says, this is an exceptional player with Premier League experience. When he went out on loan from Chelsea to Palace, he ended up being the Palace player of the season. This will be a bitter blow for some Chelsea supporters because Chelsea fans loved him. They loved the way he played. They loved his energy. And really, the only reason one of the main reasons he left Chelsea was because of the PSR rules. About the fact that he was a homegrown player and selling him, the transfer fee could be banked as pure profit. So he is a great player, and I'm sure he will have improved having worked with Diego Simeone in Spain as well.
Yeah, very quickly, Mark, will there be any more transfer activity at Spurs?
Yes, one deal that is actually close, the Santos left-back, Sousa. The fee that has been agreed between the two clubs is around £13 million. The structure of the deal, the final details are just being discussed at the moment. He's actually a player that, whilst he's only 19 years old, and a lot of Tottenham fans will be saying, well, you know, is he going to be any good for us now? There is actually a belief within Tottenham that he is someone that can have an impact on this Premier League season, but of course is very much one for the future as well. He's also on the radar of Carlo Ancelotti at Brazil. So, you know, if he's thought of in those kind of circles, it means he's a real talent. We had Tim Vickery on Sky Sports News last week who spoke glowingly about him and what he'll bring and his energy and the attributes that he has. So, yeah, it could suddenly look like a different picture for Tottenham Hotspur fans tonight. Yes, the injury to Bentancur, but Conor Gallagher, nice and solid. Sousa coming in.
Dragoshin going, yes or no?
Potentially to Roma. We reported from our colleague Sky Italy that Roma's number one centre-back target in this window was Dragoshin. However, Tottenham aren't going to let him go unless they're totally comfortable. And whilst at the moment they have a number of injury concerns, I would put this in the box of keep an eye on it. Nothing close as of yet. But absolutely, there is a chance he could go. Just the one appearance so far for Spurs this season. Had a real injury nightmare. Never really got a consistent run in the team. So actually, it probably feels like his time in North London is coming to an end. Roma, the likely destination.
I'll be looking out for you shouting hijack, though, that's for sure. Let's talk Aston Villa then. So it looks like they're not going to get Conor Gallagher. Are they going to lose Donyell Marlon?
Yeah, so they're currently in advanced talks with Roma over a potential deal. This is a loan with an option to make this one permanent. We understand it's 25 million euros that could rise to 30 million euros. The player needs the green light from his representatives that this is the right move for him. Roma are just waiting for that as well. But the clubs continue to talk over a potential deal for the 26-year-old and the Netherlands international. Only 7 Premier League starts since he arrived in January 2025.
Done pretty well when he's come on, though.
Yeah, he scored 7 goals this season in all competitions. So he's absolutely had an impact. But you get the feeling that Unai Emery has a number 9 striker, and that's Ollie Watkins, and no one else is going to get a look in. Remember, John Duran was very similar. Yeah. Struggled for game time, ended up going to Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, it is a situation that feels like it's coming to an end for Donyell Marlon at Aston Villa. And at the minute, the two clubs are continuing to talk.
Mark said Ollie Watkins got it all his own way. Will that be the case if Tammy Abraham comes in, though?
I've actually seen quite a lot of Villa this season. And, you know, obviously Ollie Watkins makes a massive difference to the way they play. But I think they need more options up front as well. And Tammy Abraham had a fantastic record when he was at Villa before, but I think it was when they were in the Championship, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2018, 2019, 25 goals in 37 appearances.
Yeah.
He's actually scored 12 goals for Besiktas. He's on loan from Roma to Besiktas at the moment. So that would mean they recall him and then potentially send him back out on loan. So, yeah, it's a bit of a complicated deal, but it shows that they're looking for extra firepower because they know this second phase of the season is going to be crucial and potentially could define Unai Emery's reign at Aston Villa.
Yeah, and given that we're talking about Villa doing some business, does that mean their profit and sustainability rules nightmare is over?
No.
But the good news is that this is the last season of PSR, because from next season we're going to have new financial rules, squad cost ratio. So this is the final time that Villa will have to deal with the PSR rules. But of course they've got to deal with UEFA's financial rules as well, because they're playing in the Champions League. But you do feel that Unai Emery has been hamstrung by the fact that he has had to deal with this PSR issues, and perhaps, I don't know this for sure, perhaps that is one of the reasons why when it came to Conor Gallagher they were more keen on a loan deal rather than a permanent transfer, which is something that Spurs are apparently willing to do.
And again, if they'd done a loan deal with an obligation or an option, in the summer, when that became active, they could know whether they've got Champions League football for next season, which will affect things. Their turnover to the year end of 2024 was 275 million. Their projected turnover for the year end of 2025 is around 350 million, because their commercial growth has grown and being in the Champions League makes a difference of around 70 to 80 million pounds. One other thing just to point out as well, that there are, for those teams in Europe, there are two sets of financial rules that they have to respect and abide by. The Premier League's PSR rules, which allows you to lose 105 million over 3 rolling seasons, whereas PSR or FFP as it is in Europe, you have to be 70% of the club's turnover for your football operating costs. So they actually have to, the club European rules are far more strict than the Premier League's rules.
Before we leave Villa, tell us about Maggio, the player they've got in. He's English, isn't he? Did I read? Played for Luxembourg and England at youth level. Or have I made that up?
Yeah, you know more than us.
Well, everyone knows that, but, you know.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's a deal that's looks like it's all done and dusted. So, another player. But, again, you see with the way that Villa go about their business, young players, they have to be careful. Wages aren't high, transfer fees not high. Until they get 3 or 4 years in the Champions League back-to-back, where their turnover will start to grow, that will release the pressure valve on them being really, really tight financially. OK, time for a break. Now, when we come back, he's only been in the job for a matter of days, but will Chelsea's injury problems force Liam Rosenior to make a move in the market? That and more to come on The Transfer Show next. Welcome back. We've been promising you that we're going to talk Mark Guehi. Now is the time. Now, Carvey, every time I walked past your desk today, earlier, you were on the phone talking to somebody about Mark Guehi. There have been developments. What can you tell us?
I was talking to lots of people, not necessarily all about Mark Guehi. Look, the race to sign Mark Guehi is wide open at the moment. There isn't a front runner. There is no favourite. But I think we can narrow it down to 4 clubs. And the most interesting one at the moment is Manchester City, because we believe that City are the one club who are interested in signing him this month, as well as next summer. Now, to get him this month, obviously they would have to put a pretty big transfer fee offer to Crystal
What's the big
Palace.
transfer fee? Given that he nearly went for 35 million on deadline day. So what's the big transfer fee in January?
So last summer, he had a year left on his contract. Now he's got less than 6 months. Last summer, £35 million was almost enough to get him. I'm thinking still somewhere between 20 and 30 million pounds would be the kind of figure that
well, he's worth that, surely.
Well, he's an England international, but the only problem is that you could potentially get him as a free agent in the summer, and Manchester City are looking at that option as well. What we know is that City are likely to sign a centre-back this year because there are question marks over the future of John Stones, Nathan Ake as well. And obviously, it makes sense to look at Mark Guehi because he's available for nothing in the summer. But the big question is, will they offer enough to tempt Palace to sell him now? And our information is that they've not made an offer for the player, but potentially watch this space over the next few days. Because there are also 3 other clubs who want to sign him.
Spill the beans.
But they want to sign him in the summer. The 3 clubs are, the first one is Liverpool. He almost joined Liverpool on deadline day. It collapsed at the last minute, £35 million deal. Liverpool are pushing to sign him as a free agent in the summer. Arsenal are ready to join the race to sign him in the summer as well. I think Arsenal have a lot of strength in depth at the back. Also, Gabriel, William Saliba have signed new contracts. So I would say Arsenal's need is not as pressing as some of the other clubs. But having said that, he's an England international, available on a free. Of course, a club as big and successful as Arsenal are going to look at this situation. The final one is Bayern Munich. Now, they're interesting because they're a foreign club. They're the one interested club who can speak to him now.
And their manager was a great centre-back, which I'm sure Mark Guehi would love.
Of course, I think he would be excited about the prospect of playing for the champions of Germany and also working with Vincent Kompany and playing alongside Harry Kane as well. And they can speak to him now. They can agree a pre-contract deal with him now. And our colleagues at Sky Germany are saying just in the past few days, they have really stepped up their efforts to try and convince Mark Guehi to move to Germany in the summer.
My producer's telling me, Mark, you've got a sentence to tell me. One sentence. Where will he be playing his football come beginning of February?
In the Premier League. That's a sentence. Can I just say one quick thing on the Mark Guehi situation?
Go on, real quick.
For the clubs that want to sign him, whether they sign him in January or in the summer, it's essentially going to cost them the same thing. Because if they give 25 million to Crystal Palace now to get him, or they give Mark Guehi 25 million as a signing on fee in the summer, it's going to cost them the same amount of money. The only difference is that Mark Guehi will get that money instead of Crystal Palace.
Exactly. So
I don't think he cares about the money, by the way.
No, of course.
I think he'll go for the club that's best for his career.
Indeed. So, City interested, of course. And remember, Ruben Diaz, Josko Gvardiol are both out. Ryan Aït-Nouri, he's coming back from the Africa Cup of Nations. That's been delayed. Here's why.
We see how does he feel this afternoon. Ryan Aït-Nouri's come back from the AFCON, but unfortunately lost the connection. They're a little bit late, but we see in the training session how does he feel, and we're going to take a decision that no risk for the players, that get injured again.
So he's missed his connections, but he is on his way back, Aït-Nouri. That doesn't solve City's centre-back problems, though, Mark. So if it's not Guehi, who's it going to be?
Well, we know that they're in the market to try and sign centre-backs over the course of this window. However, Pep Guardiola has also said they won't be making the same number of signings that they did in January last year, where they spent over £175 million. He said, look, that's not going to happen.
But they don't need to.
No, of course not. But a centre-back could be the difference between them winning 2 or 3 pieces of silverware, 2, or not, right? That's the difference with the business end of the season. This is where Pep Guardiola will say, if you want to win the Champions League and the Premier League, I need a centre-back and I need him in now. But we know that they're definitely looking, and Mark Guehi, as Carve said, is on their radar and is someone that they have actively looked to sign in this January transfer window.
Antoine Semenyo in. Does that mean Oscar Bob out?
At the minute, he's injured, so he won't be going anywhere. Maybe as the window progresses, we've got 3 weeks still to go, there is a very good chance that his game time has been limited at Manchester City, so therefore he'll be saying, right, I want to play, and Pep probably will say, look, you're not going to get as much game time as you'd like, so have a look at the options. There are 2 or 3 Premier League sides and a number of teams in Europe that are interested in taking Oscar Bob on loan. So, yeah, you could see potentially something happening when he gets back fit towards the end of the window. OK, all right, let's talk Chelsea now. Liam Lassigna already won his first match as head coach, but he has admitted that injuries are playing a key part in his selection decisions for tomorrow's Carabao Cup semi-final first leg against Arsenal.
We've had no injury problems coming out from Charlton, which is a really, really good thing. I'll make a decision on Cole, Reece and Mallow tomorrow. I'm giving them some extra time, and doing the press conference 2 days before is not ideal. Sorry about that, but I've got time to make a decision. I haven't made a decision on the team, and we'll make that decision tomorrow or the morning of Wednesday.
We shouldn't have any broader concerns about the fitness of those players. Are they just being managed?
They're being managed. And it was a good time for them to rest in the FA Cup game. And I believe in this group. There's no reason to take risks on players' health if you believe that you can win the game and they can come through and get extra training sessions and extra bits of work, and that's the way it's worked out so far.
Carve, I find Chelsea interesting. Are the hierarchy just going to say to Rosenior, those are your players, coach them?
I wouldn't put it quite like that, but the way I'd put it is that Chelsea have got a very strong squad, a very young squad, and I think the new head coach is aware of the fact that he has got an incredible squad to work with, and he wants to work with that squad. So I don't think he's in a position where he's going to be saying to the sporting directors at Chelsea, I've only been here for 5 minutes, I want this, this, this and this, and the window's about to close, can you go out and get them for me? I don't think that's the way he's thinking at all, and I really don't think Chelsea have any plans to make any major signings this month.
OK. All right, listen, we've got to take another quick break. The Africa Cup of Nations, very close to finishes this weekend, which means Mohamed Salah is on his way back. But is he on his way back to then leave Liverpool in this window? We'll discuss that next. Hi, welcome back to the final part of tonight's transfer show. We're going to talk Mohamed Salah. Let's not forget, when he left to go to the Africa Cup of Nations, Mark, there was hell to pay. He's soon coming back, but is he coming back to leave?
Ultimately, Liverpool, I think if Liverpool had signed Antoine Semenyo, then that would have been the biggest indicator that Mo Salah was headed out of Anfield over the course of this January transfer window. The fact that they didn't sign Semenyo, they haven't signed a winger, would suggest that he is going to be there until the summer. There are very few destinations in the world that could afford Mo Salah's wages. Saudi Arabia, maybe Real Madrid. There's very few options. But of course, he has a contract until the summer of 2027 at Liverpool. So therefore, you have to do a deal with Liverpool before you can do a deal with Mo Salah. And I think that's where the problem lies ultimately, because Liverpool are going to have to try and replace someone who they budgeted to have at the football club for 2 years. And they have to try and find a replacement. And to find a replacement like him is almost impossible. He's been sensational.
Wasn't in great form before he went. That was part of the problem, though.
Part of the problem, yes. But I think my understanding was part of the problem was his defensive responsibilities. He wants to score goals and set goals up and be in the final third. He's never really had to spend much of his career worrying about tracking fullbacks and doing the defensive side of the game. And in the moment where Liverpool was struggling, they needed to be perhaps a little bit more resolute defensively before they could allow players to just go and express themselves in the final third of the pitch. So therefore, I think that's where the problem lied between Arne Slot and Mo Salah. Have to remember he came back, he said what he said publicly in the mix zone, missed a couple of games, a lot of media activity for a week or so. He ended up coming back for that final game before he went off for AFCON. So as far as Liverpool are concerned, business as usual. He's made up, he's got on with it, he's been in the squad, he's been involved, and as far as we're concerned, he has a contract for this season and next season. But just needs one offer from somewhere like Saudi Arabia and the whole dynamic changes.
Why do you say that he would have left Liverpool if they'd signed Semenyo?
I don't think.
Why didn't they get Semenyo?
I don't definitely think he would have left, but I think the chances of him leaving were far greater if they had a replacement in, because they don't have very many right wingers. Szoboszlai has been playing there, but he's also filled in at right back. We know that Conor Bradley is out for the majority of the season as well. So down that right hand side, they're actually quite short. So to let Mo Salah go, a hugely experienced Premier League player, would be almost a really silly move for Liverpool, and they're not really a club that makes silly moves. Why didn't they get Antoine Semenyo? I don't know, is the ultimate answer. We know that they like the player. We know that Richard Hughes signed the player. We know that there was a link between Liverpool and Antoine Semenyo. Ultimately, Manchester City did the deal for £64 million. They offered Antoine Semenyo what he was happy to play for. I think maybe in another world he could have ended up at Liverpool. But as you know, in football and transfers, things can change at the last minute. And for whatever reason, they decided that wasn't the right move for them at that time.
Speaking of things changes, doesn't seem like anything ever changes for Newcastle. Richest club in the world, can't spend a bean. Is that going to change, Mark?
Well, no. Eddie Howe's been speaking today. He's mentioned PSR once again. He actually made a really interesting point where he said, look, you could take a chunk of the money that's been allocated for summer transfers, bring it forward in January, but if you actually get it wrong, you've then committed to a player for 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 years, and suddenly you've got a massive problem, and then you put a dent in what you want to try and do in the summer. The only time we'll spend money in January is if the right player becomes available at the right price. And as we know, there's very little business that can be done in January. Big clubs don't want to lose their best players right now, halfway through a season, because they're thinking, well, you know, we've got to this point. Now we need all of our best players to get ourselves over the line, to win leagues, to win cup competitions. We don't want to sell big players. And that's the problem they've got. We know that Newcastle are interested in potentially shoring up defensively, maybe a left-back. That could be something they look at. But, of course, there's very few left-backs out there. They've got crippling injuries as well, like so many sides. But the good news is Sven Botman signed a new deal as well at Newcastle till 2030. Big plus. A lot of clubs were looking at him, particularly in Europe. The fact that he's committed to the football club, once again, tells you where his thought process is, where his heart is, and the fact that maybe he feels, actually, there's more things to win at Newcastle.
I want a quick word about relegation. Let's talk Burnley and Wolves. Do they give it up, hang on to their money, or do they spend and try and get out of trouble?
I don't think Wolves have got the ability to spend. If you look at their business model over the course of the last few seasons, it's been very much about how can they generate income, buy low, sell high, and of course they are in a real mess at the moment. Although they've won back-to-back games now, suddenly if they win 3 games on the spin, maybe the greatest of all great escapes is still possible. And Burnley, again, they have to be really careful with what they do PSI-wise. Really well-run club, really sensible, but they invested quite heavily when they got to the Premier League last time, got relegated. Scott Parker's doing a solid job there. I think they're going to go with what they've got. Maybe 1 or 2 little positions might get looked at, but generally I think they have to be really careful.
What do you think, Carve? Stick or twist?
I think they need to stick. I think, especially Wolves, echoing what Mark said, I don't think they have the finances there to be able to do much. The big question is what they do with Strand Larsen, because obviously there's a lot of interest in him.
OK, all right, well, we are just about done. Transfer shows return tomorrow, of course. There they are, in the morning, 9 o'clock. Then we're midday, and then we are back at 4 and 7 o'clock as well. So, we were talking Manchester United earlier. It looks like Michael Carrick is edging ever closer to becoming interim head coach. Wayne Rooney says he'd like to work with him, and it looks like Jonathan Woodgate might be involved. And more on the Xabi Alonso story. He has left Real Madrid. Could he appear in the Premier League anytime soon? That was tonight's transfer show.